I'm Núria Moliner. I'm an architect, researcher, and communicator. And over the last years, I've mainly worked with Costa Es, a Barcelona-based audiovisual production company, and with Televisión Española, which is the Spanish public TV channel. I think there were two main reasons that brought me to the research and communication fields. The first one is that it's what I'm most passionate about, and it was like that from the very beginning, back when I was studying at the Barcelona Architecture School. In fact, I recall that rather than designing, or aside from designing, what I enjoyed the most was to present the projects, to explain the concepts and the ideas behind the design decisions, because I believed, and I still do, that architecture is also about wondering, about thinking over, about imagining possible realities and futures, and about being creative rather than just finding technical solutions or drawing or building. And I was also lucky to draw inspiration from some great theory and history professors that were the living proof that you could conceive the architectural practice beyond construction, or beyond the conventional perception of what it is to be an architect. So that was the first reason. And the second reason is that just when I was finishing studying, I realized that there were many things I didn't believe in or I didn't fit in. And I kind of had a crisis with our own profession, with the role of architects in society, or with the environmental impact of construction. So I guess I'm an architect who decided not to build because of all of that, and especially because I was more interested in other stuff, and because I preferred to take part in the change by doing research and communicating more sustainable, healthy, and conscious ways of conceiving architecture and design. So from that point forward, I focused on the conceptual practices, and I started writing my own blog. Then I worked in a publishing house about architecture, also in an international platform disseminating architecture and urbanism. And one thing led to the other, and somehow one day I found myself, by chance, it was kind of a surprise, but I found myself filming a TV pilot for a potential TV documentary series called Escala Humana, Human Scale. And it could not have happened, but I guess we were lucky and it worked. And now we have already broadcasted 2 seasons, and we are currently working on the 3rd one. The truth is that I really appreciate the opportunity that our channel, La Dos de Televisión Española, gave us, because it is only, or mainly, in public channels where you can find spots for culture, art, and architecture in TV. And in Televisión Española, they strongly support and bet for these topics. In fact, from Monday to Thursday, 9 to 10 p.m., which is a great schedule, they normally broadcast series or documentaries about architecture and design. And I think that's a big bet. I think that's important. It's a big deal. And some of these shows, some of these series are international productions, such as Grand Designs or Ecologics or Top 10 Architecture. But there's also our program, which is locally produced, is self-produced, called Escala Humana, which is weekly broadcasted and it lasts 30 minutes. And aside from this, in the same channel, you can also find other cultural spots where you can talk about architecture and design. For instance, I also collaborate in a TV show, in a cultural show called Punts de Vista, where we have a section about these topics as well. Escala Humana is a TV documentary series which depicts the human, social, and environmental aspects in architecture, design, and urbanism. I think it's important to mention that It's produced by a multidisciplinary and creative group. It's directed by Jaume Clerias, and the architect Jaume Prat and I work as content advisors. But everyone's opinion is clue, and we work together as a team. And I think Escala Humana stems from the fact that design and architecture are everywhere. Design surrounds us, it embraces us as a huge part in our lives. And therefore, we believed that these spaces, these cities, these objects with which we interact on a daily basis disguise some stories worth sharing, and that those stories should be accessible to everyone. That is why we were entirely 100% positive that Escala Humana should be aimed to the general public. Also, of course, to architects and professionals involved in the creation of the built environment, but especially to the general public. And to do so, we use a transparent language, we use metaphors, we work a lot on the photography and the image and the way we explain the projects, and we also do some experiments with objects or models or graphics in order to bring architecture, design, and urbanism closer to everyone and to try to break the distance between architecture and society. And another thing I think sets us apart is the fact that we not only talked with architects. I think if you want to get to everyone, it's important that you talk more about architecture and less about architects. And so we wanted to explain the ideas behind these amazing projects, but also to talk with a variety of voices involved in these projects. We not only interview architects, we also interview designers, urban planners, craftsmen, writers, philosophers, biologists, and so on. And more importantly, we also interview the users, the inhabitants, the citizens, because at the end, we are all part of design, and people are the center and the essence of design and architecture. To be honest, for me, the real success is that this program exists, because it's not that easy. It could not have happened. It started as a dream. We spent more than 2 years working on it, trying to imagine what it could be like, filming the pilot, then trying to find a channel that could be interested, and trying to convince them that it was worth it, that it was a good idea, and that it could be something special. So yeah, honestly, I think the real success is that programs or documentary series such as Escala Humana exist, because it's not that easy. And I think that's something we are really aware of, and we appreciate it every single day. So yeah, then when it came to a reality, I was kind of worried about the reaction that people would have, or especially about what architects would think. But the response has been incredible, and we couldn't be more grateful. And it's fantastic that we can continue filming more seasons, and that's something really, I don't know, I'm really happy about that. And getting back to the question, if I had to choose one chapter in particular, um, there was this one called Tocar Madera, to touch wood, which was one of the most popular ones, and also actually one of my favorite ones. And I think it was maybe a little bit more popular because it was about a current topic of interest, because it was about trying to build in a more sustainable way, and because at the end it was about trying to imagine a better world through design and architecture, and it had a really hopeful and positive feeling. And of course, also because of the brilliant projects and voices that were filmed and interviewed in this episode. It's actually interesting to see people's reaction, or to see the audience results, because they might not always be what you expected them to be. But it's quite tricky to judge the numbers, because they are super relative, and they depend upon so many factors that you cannot control. But although we normally have maintained constant results in terms of audience. There was one chapter in particular that maybe didn't reach that a big audience, or it reached a smaller audience, and it was the one about structures and the more technical side of architecture. But at the same time, it was maybe the chapter that received one of the most positive feedbacks from professionals and architects, which is curious. And it doesn't have to be a bad thing, because I think it's nice that that you have episodes for everyone, and that some people find some episodes more and interesting than others. But I think I would choose this chapter as an example of what our goal is not. I think our goal is to reach as much people as possible and to bring architecture and design to everyone. I think it is difficult. I think culture is essential in our lives, and yet there are less and less spaces for it in the whole spectrum, from the economy to the media. And when it comes to architecture, it's even harder. It's even more difficult. Working in the communication field related to architecture is like a constant battle. So that's why I'm really grateful when someone or some institutions support this kind of projects, because it's not that common. And I also have to say that maybe as architects, we might have focused too much on communicating architecture to architects and not so much to the general public. And that might not have helped, along with the image of, these iconic projects or the star architects and so on. But the important thing is that the interest is there. And over the years, a lot of people have reached us with their enthusiasm, people who have nothing to do with the architectural world, and yet they are more than interested about it. They are passionate about architecture. So yeah, I think the most important thing is that the interest is there, because we are always surrounded by architecture and design, and people feel that. So all we need is more support and the decision makers to help us find a way to make it happen.